Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Java Basics. Today, we're going to be talking about how to create your first Java program. The actual topics that are going to be covered in this video are the Netbeans IDE, creating a project, creating a file or a class within your project, what code needs to be inside the class, the main method, printing text to the output window, and finally, where are the Java files actually located on your computer? If you want to learn Java programming, or just programming in general, subscribe to this channel. We put out a lot of videos that range from beginner topics to more advanced programming concepts. Also, please like this video, share it with a friend, and write a comment as well. It goes a long way to help promote a channel like this. Now, let's get back to the video. The Netbeans IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. Now, there are lots of them that you can choose from. I prefer Netbeans, and the only reason why I prefer Netbeans is because that's the one that I've been using the most often. There are other ones called Eclipse, which is very good, and I'm sure there are plenty of others that are just as good. So feel free to use any one you like. I'm going to be talking to you about Netbeans on occasion, but most of the stuff that we talk about in this series is going to be generic to any IDE that you like to use. Now, we're not going to cover installing Netbeans or any IDE, so you need to make sure that you have Netbeans installed and also make sure that when you do that, your Java is also installed. So here is Netbeans. First thing we need to do is create a project. In Netbeans, all Java files are enclosed within a project. As you can see, I do have a project here. This is something else that I've been working on with students. But let's create a new one. File, new project, Java, Java application. We'll hit next. And now we're going to give the project a name. So I'm going to call it Java Basics. Now it's going to be all one word. And we need to pick a location on our computer where we're going to store this project. Well, it just so happens that I've created, and if I hit the browse button, I've created on my PC a directory called Teaching Content. And within there, I have a directory called Java Basics. So I'm going to click that directory. I'm going to hit Open. Now you can see that this stuff changed to my directory. You can place it wherever you like, on your desktop, wherever. Over here, I'm going to keep these two checkboxes unchecked. Now this one in particular will be checked by default usually. I'm going to uncheck it because I don't want Netbeans creating any code for me. I want to create all the code myself. It's usually a better idea. One, because you don't want any unnecessary code in your programs. And two, the more you do, the more you learn. So we click Finish. And here you can see that we have a new project. Under the source, you just have something called default package. Well, that's nothing for now. What we want to do now is we want to create a new file within our project, or what we call in Java a class. So we're going to right-click on this project, New, Empty Java File. When we click that, we have a class name. So the class name, we're going to call it Hello World. That's going to be the name of our initial class. We're going to click Finish. And now that class is created. And as you can see, it's completely blank and it's written over here, hello world.java, and it's within this project. So what code needs to go inside this class? There's a couple of things that if you've never programmed in Java before, you may not understand, but in a later video, we will definitely go over what they mean. So for now, just follow along. The first thing you have to type is public, then the word class, and now the name of the class is going to be exactly the name of the file, hello world, capitalization matters, hello world. Now we don't put .java here. We're not going to put .java. This is just the name of the class. .java is included in the name of the file. We're going to hit enter, We're going to open a curly bracket, and when we hit enter again, NetBeans automatically closes the curly bracket. Now, if you notice, as I was typing, there were things that were being highlighted in red. That just means that there's an error, but a lot of times the errors will be displayed because you haven't finished typing certain things. Like, for example, here, if I don't have an end curly bracket, I get an error. But I may just be in the middle of typing, and I'm not as quick as NetBeans. So anyway, we've just created our class. Now we have to create something called the main method. So just follow along. We're going to call public static void main, open parentheses, and inside the parentheses, we're going to write the word string with a capital S, open bracket, close bracket, square brackets that is, and the word args. And after we're done with that, we're going to hit enter, open a curly bracket, hit enter, and NetBeans automatically adds the closing curly bracket. It also did it with the parentheses and the square brackets. So here we go. We have our class. Now we have this method. It's called a method called main. That's the name of the method. These are parameters, and again, in a future video, we'll talk about that. Inside here is where your program goes. Now I can type, this is where my program goes. The only problem typing this is NetBeans is going to look at this and say, well, that's not a valid Java command. But we do want to be able to type in comments like this to kind of annotate our programs so we can know what's going on without having to look through the actual code. If we put / in front of a line, you can see that it becomes light gray, and that means that this line is a comment, which means Java will ignore this line. This line is just for us. So what are we going to do first? The first thing we want to do is we want to print something to the output window. Well, here is the output window. How do we print something? Well, there's a command called system.out.print line, open parentheses, close parentheses, and then we always end a Java command with a semicolon. Not always. Most of the time we will end it with a semicolon. As we go through this series, you'll see which ones have semicolons and which ones don't. Anyway, inside the parentheses, we're going to use double quotes, and inside the double quotes is going to be what we want to print to the output window. So let's print hello world. Let's try and run this. The way we run this file, there's two ways. First way is we go run file. The first one usually takes longer than the subsequent runs, but as you can see, we've run it, we've printed hello world, and then NetBeans just says, okay, I was successful in running the program, no errors. And you can see here's our output. We printed hello world. Just something to mention, every single Java program that you write will always have to have this, and it will always have to have this. And again, we will talk later in future videos about what these things are and how you could possibly even modify them slightly. Anyway, we've printed hello world, but there's other ways to print. Another way to print is system.out. Instead of println, we're just going to do print. Oop, I forgot my semicolon. I'm going to print hi, and then on the next line, .out.print, I'm going to print there. So what am I printing? I'm printing hello world, then I'm printing hi, and then I'm printing there. Let's see what happens. Now I did say that there were multiple ways to run a program. I could click this. This says run the main project. Well, that's not going to run this. That's going to run the main project, which is the project that's highlighted in bold text, which is this other project that I was working on another time. If I want this one to be the main project, I would right-click on it, and I would click Set Main Project. And now, as you can see, this one is highlighted in bold. So instead of going Run and then Run File, I can just as easily click this. And when I do that, it's going to ask me, where is my main method? The main class. And I'm just going to say, okay. And it's going to run, and it's going to print hello world, and then hi there. But it kind of printed it a little weird. See, hello world was on this line, but then hi there was on the next line. And that's because of this ln. Whenever you print something with ln, it means print and then go to the next line. Here we don't have an ln, which means we're going to print hi. The cursor is going to stay right after the I, and then we're going to print the word there and stay on that line again. So we don't have a space between hi and there, which we would want. So we would put a space here. Or we could put it here, either one. Also, when we print the word there, Java also prints, okay, I was successful, but we want to print that on the next line. So here we'll just add the ln, which means we're going to print hi, a space, stay on that line, then print there, and then go to the next line. Let's run it and test, see what happens. And there we go. Perfect. One thing to note is whenever you run your Java program, what code actually runs is the code that's inside the main method. So you're always going to put your initial Java commands inside the main method. And this is going to get a little more complicated as we move through the series. The last thing I wanted to talk about was, where is this file actually stored on your computer? Well, if you recall, we had this directory called teaching content, and we created a project called, a folder called Java Basics, and in here we have a project called Java Basics. So that's where the project went. It went inside the directory that I created. If we open up the project itself, you can see that we have all these directories, build, whatever, src. The two that are the key directories that we're going to be focusing on in this series is the build and the source. For now, we're just going to worry about the source. src stands for source, and if you look inside there, you will see your Java file, hello world.java. Now, if we open that up, you can see it's just a plain old text file that I can open up in Notepad. You could modify the file here if you want, but I don't recommend doing that, because if you modify the program in Notepad, if, for example, you make a mistake and forget, say, that semicolon, you notice Notepad doesn't complain. It doesn't say, hey, you have an error. However, let me not save this. In Netbeans, if I forget my semicolon, Netbeans is going to complain. It's going to say, hey, yeah, you got a problem. So let's take a look. We have this thing underlined in red. If I hover my cursor over that, I get a little pop-up that says semicolon is expected. I can also hover over here, semicolon expected. And I also have an indication here. The red box tells me that there is one error, and then the red dash tells me where the error is, and it tells me what the error is. So for example, if I had a whole bunch of code, I'm just going to add a whole bunch of lines of code. If I had a whole bunch of code, this could be hundreds or thousands of lines of code, I can quickly get to my error by jumping here and clicking. And it automatically brings me to that point in my code. And I go, oh, okay, forgot the semicolon. Okay? Now, anything that has a little gray dash or a yellow dash, sometimes you'll see gray and yellow. Those are warnings. Usually, I ignore those warnings because it usually will ask me if I want NetBeans to modify my code, and I'm not going to want NetBeans to modify my code. I like to modify my code myself. So I usually tell people just ignore everything except for the red. I hope you learned something from watching this video. Please remember to subscribe and share this video with others who are learning Java programming. Thanks for watching, and take care, everyone.